You're listening to the Jan Price Show, all about movies. And today, my guests are Hallee Adelman and Sean King O'Grady. And we're going to be talking about their new documentary entitled Our American Family. Welcome to the show, Hallee and Sean.
Thank you for having us, Jan.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. This film is so apropos with everything that's going on in the world right now. There's so much out there around addiction in this country that is an epidemic. And I found this fascinating that you were able just to follow a family that had several addicts in it, which is, I don't know if that's unusual or not. But my question really is, how did you come about following this family? How did you find them? And what made you decide that you wanted to do a documentary about them? And I'll ask you, Hallee, that question.
Yeah, I had known the film family for about 8 years. And, Sean and I like to talk about the idea that we weren't really looking to do a documentary. We were looking to lift the bravery of a family that was frankly fearless. You don't see a family who's in early stages of early recovery kind of opening their doors and saying, oh yeah, please come in, because families know that families who experience addiction know that that's messy and difficult and challenging. And that's what they did. So we were here really to lift a fearless family on their quest to help others and to start bashing stigmas.
Good for you. Good for you. How did you get involved in this, Sean?
Hallee and I were introduced by a mutual friend. As Hallee had been exploring different creative projects with the film family and with Nicole, who's featured in the film. And when they landed on the idea that they might want to do a documentary, this friend introduced us, and I came to Philadelphia for the first time thinking really that we were kind of exploring whether there was a film to be made there. And I'm thinking all throughout the day, like, oh, there's definitely a film. There's definitely a film. We got to the end of the day, and that's when Hallee and I were discussing, and I thought I was exploring if there was a film. She thought we were starting our first day of the film. So it was really like, to say we hit the ground running is absolutely true. It was, it was great. And that ended up being the first day of 365, one whole year worth of filming that we did.
And so when you approached this family, what was their first reaction, Hallee, about wanting to do a documentary about them and their lives?
We had talked about writing. I was helping Nicole write her own pieces for a little while. Then we realized that wasn't the right medium. And when you see Nicole in the film, she's the oldest daughter in Our American Family who had been to 17 treatment centers and was struggling with a heroin addiction. When you see Nicole, she is just so eloquent, and she is just so smart and fierce. And her family is the same way. Her family's funny, and they found ways to deal with addiction in not just, the stress of addiction, but also find levity in moments that a lot of families wouldn't find levity. So it was really just seeing that was the right vessel for them if they wanted to be on a journey to help people. It was kind of natural.
Well, that's interesting that it was for them. And Sean, as far as the filming of this, how did the family respond to having a camera on them almost 24/7 for 365 days, right?
And just to clarify, we didn't film for all of those 365 days. That was just a period of time over which we filmed. But they were truly naturals. I've never seen other people be so comfortable in front of the camera from the very beginning. It really felt like we kind of weren't even there with cameras. It felt like we were there and we were really immersed and we were really a part of this family. I think a lot of that is a testament to, the 8 years that Hallee spent building that relationship with the family prior to when we started filming. But that it really was, there were times when it just felt like we were, and when I say immersed, I mean immersed in a way that's unlike anything I've ever experienced before, where we were on their journey with them, and we just had to try to almost everyone forget that there were cameras even there, while also trying to capture the most beautiful images that we could. So it really was a remarkable experience, and the family was just incredible with the cameras from day one.
That's amazing. That's amazing because I can't imagine having cameras on you all the time and still try to be, excuse me, I've got something in my throat, as natural as you can be. So that's pretty amazing. What was the most difficult part of filming this, Hallee?
I think the most difficult part is probably the moment, or are probably those moments when the family was struggling more than other times. It was those times where, at this point, we really brought our hearts to filming and brought our hearts to this family. So when they were struggling, it was hard. It was hard. You wished you had a magic wand in those moments. So I think that was the hardest part, is just being so close to their struggle and caring so deeply about them.
For you, Sean, was there something that was difficult in the filming, different from what Hallee?
No, I think that's really it. I mean, it really did feel like we became a part of their family. They allowed us to become a part of their family. And each time we would come back to film, it felt like a family reunion. We were so excited to be filming with them. And so when you see people who you've come to care about going through unpleasantness, it hurts. And so that really was the most difficult part.
I imagine it would be, because you've all become very attached at this point. You've all become a family, even though you're not family. You are family in a different way. Let's talk about that, Sean, because you said something in when I was researching this about three pieces. So you want to tell our audience what three pieces, what that means for you, and what you were trying, just what that means.
Which three pieces?
you want me to quote you?
Yeah,
Okay.
that'd be
Let
great.
me see. You said our American family, for me, is comprised of three pieces: the family as the heart, Hallee as the head, and myself and our crew as the body, carrying these other parts physically forward and together forming something greater, a soul.
It's funny that the only reason I didn't actually remember writing that is because it was stream of consciousness based on exactly how I was feeling. And I still feel that way about this film. And even as we're now releasing it and we've gotten to see audience reactions to it, that it was like this perfect synthesis of this incredibly brave family, Hallee having the vision for what we could do in telling their story, and then the team, all the crew members that we assembled who approached this with, I think, genuine empathy for this family and love for them and love for the process of making this film and telling their story, and also really keeping in mind all the time. I think Hallee was a really good, I guess, like moral center for us at all times, in that every decision that we had to make was based on what's best for the family, what honors the family, and what honors their story. And that really became like the guiding light for the rest of us to always be doing that. And so it was, I guess it really was a synthesis of those three different parts to create this one great whole that now is the film that people can experience.
Beautiful, beautiful. Because I thought that was what you had said when you were writing it. And it's interesting, you said it was a stream of consciousness. That's when some of the best, that is the best writing, when you're stream of consciousness and you're in it in the moment and can see it for what it really is. For this, so let's talk about the family dynamics a little bit, Hallee. You were friends with Nicole's mother, right? Is that how this started? And so let's talk about that, how you two met, and then also, just her struggle of this. Because she had not one, but three. All three had addictions. So in different ways. So let's talk about that dynamic a little bit.
Yeah, Linda is a really powerful, beautiful person. She cares so deeply about her family and about wanting to get I guess as all parents sometimes think like you just want to get it right as a parent. In the film Our American Family, there's a moment where Linda's talking about how she went to school for early childhood education because she just wanted to do right by her kids. But then, she was carrying the hardship of growing up with a mom who had struggled and was taught at an early age to let addiction thrive. If we can't handle what's going on with you right now because mom's not doing well, addiction must be really important. And then, when she had married a husband who was struggling, she didn't even see the signs that he was struggling with addiction because she was so used to minimizing addiction and addictive behaviors. So she had to not only cope with what is she doing as someone who might enable addiction, what is she doing as someone who might turn the other cheek when behaviors are feeling uncomfortable, and how did that play out for her as a mom? So for me, I was really lucky to get to know Linda as a strong woman and as a mom who, no matter what, was not only wanting the best for her kids, was willing to admit when she's making mistakes and faltering, but also wanted to better herself.
Yeah, it's very, very different. Isn't that interesting though? Her mother was an addict, and
Her mother struggled with anorexia nervosa, which is a form of addiction.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then her husband, and then her children. So,
Well, two of her children. Yeah, two of her children. Nicole, she had started at a young age, tried alcohol, marijuana at a young age, and then progressed to wind up with a heroin addiction. And she had said, like, it really was in her youngest age of trying, it was to kind of fill an empty piece that she felt inside of her. And then Stephen, the youngest brother, had to pretend that he was perfect because his two siblings were struggling. And Christopher struggled, he had been beaten up. He had to have a surgery and had 7 plates put in his face. At the time, they prescribed opioids. And that was before this giant conversation of how harmful opioids could be over an extended period of time. And he wound up having a sister, he tells us, teach him heroin, like the ropes to heroin 101.
unbelievable, unbelievable. And yet they're all working together to help each other get through all this. Let's also, Sean, let's talk about the stepfather. I thought he was he was very interesting in this. And I think this had to be incredibly difficult for him and certainly for his marriage.
Yeah, Brian is a fairly reserved guy. I don't think it's natural for him to necessarily share his emotions and his feelings, but the bravery that he showed in being willing to do so on camera was just incredible. And I also think his position in the family, it's, Hallee mentioned sort of the other family members and what their positions were. And that's where I think this family in particular is so uniquely suited to do something like this, because if you were to script this movie and you were looking to write different roles to be able to encompass kind of like all the different roles in a family that can in a family that's dealing with addiction, they fill every single one. Well, just about. And Brian's role is unique in that when the process started, he had a lot of those resentments that I think family members of people suffering with addiction tend to have. He didn't believe that Nicole was going to be able to overcome these problems. He'd seen her go through treatment and relapse 17 times. He didn't think that it was truly possible. He felt that he had a hard time being around her, and over the course of the film, they actually developed quite a close bond. And I think that he represents the people who think at one point, that addiction is just something people can stop. Right. Just stop doing the thing that you're doing. Only he came to realize that wasn't the case, that this is a disease and that people do need help with it, and that it's not simple, it's not easy, it's hard, and it takes a lot of work. And I think there are a lot of people who will watch the film who probably feel the way that Brian felt at the beginning of this whole process. So I think his role is pretty critical in making the film relatable to people who have all opinions about those suffering from addiction going into it.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it did. And it was good to have him in this with the feelings that he did have. So, because so many other, you're right, so many other people feel that. I think if some Hollywood screenwriter was going to write this story and try to pitch it, I don't think anybody would believe it. I think they would just think, no, we got there's too many things going on here, too many characters and too many problems. And yet this is a very real story. So I find that interesting too, because I think if we were just, as I said, if we saw this as a movie, other than a documentary, people would go, well, I don't believe any of it at all, that this even could happen. But it's amazing that this family was open enough to allow you in, both of you in, to share their story and also the bigger message, and hopefully help other people down the road through this film. I think your film is a very healing film, and anyone who knows anyone who has an addiction, whether it's alcohol or anything, you're right. And if they're anorexic or any of these things that are addictive behavior, your film certainly could give people hope. Definitely give people hope. With it. And this is September is National Recovery Month. Did you choose this month for the time to release this film, Hallee?
We were lucky for the film to be able to be released during this month, and then span, National Substance Abuse Prevention Month, and then span beyond that, the holidays that are going to be hard for families, and the conversation that needs to keep going. So I think we're grateful that it's kicking off now, but we're even more grateful that the film will be able to be seen beyond this. And I think what you said, Jan, is so important, that if someone would script it, people would say, this is unbelievable, this is impossible, because the sad piece is families are meant to feel like this is so outlandish for it to be happening. But 21 million Americans are struggling. Their family members are struggling alongside them. So yes, there are these unique pieces that are just, this family story, but there is a lot of what's going on in this family, behind closed doors. I've had so many people, teachers of my children, doctors, friends, come up to me after the release of this film and say, this is what's going on in my family, or with my cousin, or with someone I know, or one of my best friends. And I'm glad that this is out there. So hopefully this will really help people say, I feel understood, I feel heard, or I can feel differently about people struggling with addiction.
Yeah, it's very important. When the statistics are astounding. You just quoted a few of them, but it's astounding how prevalent this all is, and it's gotten worse during the pandemic, apparently. You wonder what's going on in the national consciousness that we're having, even to have this conversation, about good people, good families, who, for whatever reason, and you're right about I'm thinking you're assuming the Oxycontin addiction that is just, again, just overwhelming for people who have been prescribed that drug for pain management, and then becoming addicted to it, and how difficult it is to get off of that drug in particular. I'm sure there are others too. So it's good to have the conversation so people are more aware. And whatever, so they can talk to others, because you're right. I think there's a shame involved with it too. And people aren't just discussing it in the open, like other things, so it's like alcohol addiction. I mean, everybody drinks alcohol, so that's a tough one. I mean, not everybody does heroin, so you can start to stay away from that. Well, you hope you can, maybe not, because it's addicting. But in our society, alcohol's there. I think somebody who has an alcohol addiction would have an incredibly hard time overcoming alcohol addiction, because it's just such a part of our society any longer, and people are self-numbing all the time. So Sean, how difficult was it to get the funding for this film?
We were really lucky, I think. I mean, very lucky in that, this wasn't a project that we were out like seeking funding for. So that when we first started the project, it was already being funded. So it wasn't, there's different ways that these projects tend to go. Sometimes you're like figuring out the financing situation as you're going along, kind of getting money wherever you can. And sometimes when they come to you, they're already financed. So that wasn't an issue on this particular film.
That's great. That's wonderful. That's very rare. So
Extremely.
to do that. Hallee, Hallee, you had known Linda for a while. You said about 8 years before you did this. Was there a reason, did it just take that long to decide to do this, or was there another reason in the 8 years that it took 8 years?
No, there wasn't a goal to make a film. You know what I mean? When we started, there wasn't a goal to make a film. I mean, Linda was doing yoga and massage in my community. I was working on a book that had a sibling who was struggling with addiction and another sibling who was not struggling with addiction in it. And Linda came to me and said, hey, you might want to talk to Nicole and Steven and my family. So I talked to her kids, and then we just stayed close. Nicole was, when she would move into an apartment down the street from her family, I was one of the community members that was like, oh, does anybody have something to fill the apartment? Does anyone have a bed? Does anyone have a night table? My daughter, actually, my youngest daughter, did her 5th grade project, and she's now a freshman in college on Team Nicole. How to cheer on Nicole, where she gave out bands of people who are cheering on Nicole, and made a photo book and sent it to Nicole when she was in recovery. So, I mean, this was really just, there was never a plan from the beginning of, oh, let's connect with this family because we could make a documentary. I mean, I wasn't even making documentaries at that point. I mean, it really was just a story of a friendship and a deep care for a family that evolved into a collective desire to help other people understand what's going on in our country, in this family, and how we can do better.
What a wonderful thing that your daughter did, though, at a young age and all those years ago. So that's wonderful. That's really special.
That was sweet. Shout out to Sage.
Definitely. Shout out to Sage. Sean, where can people see Our American Family?
Currently, they can see it kind of anywhere they rent movies digitally, on cable on demand, on iTunes, Apple TV, Amazon. If there's a platform where you rent or purchase movies, you can rent or purchase it there, and then it will be on AMC Plus in October and airing on Sundance Channel as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. And you've gone to some film festivals with this film? Have you done that yet?
Oh yeah, yes. It premiered at Woodstock Film Festival and then screened at Philadelphia Film Festival as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. I had Hallee, what has happened to Nicole since the filming ended?
Well, on October 10th, Nicole will have earned 5 years of sobriety. She works as a recovery specialist in efforts to support other people who are struggling with addiction. In her last job, she helped place over 1,000 people into treatment. So she is, being a loving mom and working hard, and just like she says in the film, every day making a decision that she's not going to drink or use.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm happy to hear that she's continued with her recovery, and 5 years is major. So definitely congratulations to her for that. Also, congratulations to both of you. This is a wonderful film that everyone should see, especially if you have anyone or know anyone that has some addiction issues. It's a heartwarming film with a gives you hope, a film that gives you hope, and we all need hope in this world today. So thank you both. I wish you much success with this, our American family. Thank you, Hallee and Sean. It's been a pleasure talking with both of you today.
Ours too. Thank you for the work you do in the space, Jan.
Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great day. Take care.